Welcome to the Mind Rebel podcast. This is our Legacy Lived series, where we explore how legacy is shaped in real time through everyday choices, relationships, and the way people show up in their homes, their work, and the communities that they serve. This series is an invitation to reflect on how legacy is formed, not someday, but now. So there's a particular kind of person who finds their way into this work. They may not always be the loudest voice in the room. They may not always seek the spotlight. And some may not even think of themselves as leaders in a traditional sense. But there is this incredible depth to them. There's this way of sensing that there are truer, more honest ways of being human than the ones that we were taught. There's this quiet knowing that how we relate matters just as much as the what we do. We are human beings, not human doings. So at the MRA, we often think of these people as these quiet leaders, and not because their impact is small, but because the quality of their leadership, like there's something very, very, very special about the quality of their leadership. There is leadership that is rooted in the deepest of presence, in the deepest of integrity, in the willingness to, first and foremost, lead themselves well before trying to lead anyone else. So when we talk about legacy in this series, we're not talking about achievements or status or recognition. This is really about the relational imprint a person leaves simply through how they live today, how they listen, how they show up, how safe others feel in their presence. These humans that I'm just describing, these humans are our why at the MRA. And this is why the work that we do in the MRA is designed the way it is. We're not just a coaching school. We help to develop and support humans who learn how to lead themselves with this steadiness, with this honesty, and with this emotional intelligence. Coach training, as we see it, is a practice of inner leadership, learning to meet your own inner world with this sense of honesty and integrity and care so that you can meet others in the same way. Because when someone learns to lead themselves well, that way of being doesn't stay contained. It ripples through relationships, through families, through teams, communities, through generations, sometimes very quietly, but unmistakably. And that's what this series is all about. It's the lived legacy of these incredible humans that we have the honor of supporting and walking alongside in the Mind Rebel Academy. And today I am so honored to welcome Rebecca to this conversation. Rebecca is an alum of the MRA. She's a mindful executive coach and someone whose way of leading herself has created such meaningful ripples in her life, in her home, in her relationships, and in her work. So her legacy isn't something she's trying to create or will one day create after she's retired or has left this earth. It's something that she is doing every day in the way she's living, in the way she shows up with the people and all of the spaces that she's part of. So Rebecca, I am so glad that you're here with me today.
Thank you, Taryn. It's so good to be here with you.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we caught up.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we dive in, how are you arriving into the space today? How are you feeling?
Oh, goodness. Grateful and so very tender. I'm just taking time to reflect on the journey to this point as being deep and significant. And it's easy to get caught in the process and to forget to kind of pause and look back on the journey. And I think this is, preparing for this conversation has led me to pause and look back and just go, wow, this has been one heck of a ride. And I'm so grateful to be able to look back on it in this way with you.
So if we rewind a bit,
we
take a big step back and look at the journey that you've been traveling on. And I'm curious if you could describe for us, Rebecca, what did life look like before? And I don't even know what before means to you, like what was the defining moment, but what did life look like before?
Yeah. So here's the thing about life before, is it looked very good. I'll say maybe 10 to 15 years ago is before for me, where life looked quite different, but it also looked, I'm going to use the word impressive. I think I've always been someone who, at least in those early parts of life, I really identified as being someone who always looked impressive in the different things that I did outwardly. I think part of the reason my journey is so tender for me is like letting go of some of that need and that identification. Yeah, so I was working in management consulting, I would say, was when this journey sort of began for me. I'd been sort of like a top student in my MBA program and got into the world of consulting. And at the same time, I sort of felt like there was always this deeper questioning around alignment and purpose and meaning that just sort of stayed very buried within me, but was always there. There was always this questioning, this seeking part of me. It came out anytime life would slow down a little bit. Anytime I would go on vacation or have a week or a month where work was a little slower and I wasn't working like 80 hours a week and there was some space and time to breathe, I would feel this like discomfort because there would be this sense of sort of dissatisfaction, this sense of there's something missing. I would say I describe my former lifestyle as being one of just compulsively striving for things, always just wanting to climb the next ladder or pursue the next goal, but without a lot of grounding and like intentionality behind the why I was pursuing those things. And doing a lot in pursuit of praise and recognition, if I'm honest. Really wanting to be seen as impressive, wanting to be seen as the best at different things. And also having this layer of myself where I never wanted anyone to know that I wanted to be the best at anything.
Well,
so
that
there
is
was
complicated.
like this mask of humility over top of this inner pull towards wanting to be impressive and be the best. It was a really exhausting way of being. It was grounded in a bit of a shaky inner foundation of like worthiness.
So it was only in the moments of quiet and stillness on vacation or away from work where the unsettledness would start to creep up. What did that unsettledness feel like or sound like?
It felt like restlessness is what I would say, like just wanting to find something else to keep me busy. I would host events often, like with my colleagues or like cottage weekends and things like that. And I could not just sit and be in conversation and relax when I did that kind of thing. I had to be like moving and cleaning up or organizing things. There was this part of me that just always had to be like a compulsion to keep busy and to keep in motion because there was immense physical discomfort that I would feel anytime I would sit still. So that's what it felt like to me. And then the inner stories, though, that would come up that felt most scary were like, maybe I don't know what I want. Maybe this isn't actually the right relationship or the right career or the right friend group or whatever it was. I would start questioning the outer circumstances of my life around me. And that felt really scary. So I just wanted to get away from that. So yeah, there was sort of, I think, running from myself, running from the deeper questions of who am I and what do I really want, that sort of ruled life for a chapter there.
Was there a defining moment that changed everything?
There were a series of moments, a prolonged series. And I would say these moments continue to this day, these moments that really like kind of continue to shake you awake. One was being in my consulting firm office, like working late and learning that a friend of mine had passed away in a very like tragic, unexpected way. And, having those questions start to come up for myself of like, if I died tomorrow, what would people have to say? And like, do people actually really know me? And the questions around like imagining that if people did have something to say about me, it would be that, yeah, she worked really hard. She was really impressive. And that wasn't really what I wanted to leave behind as legacy in this life. So that was one that still sticks out to me as being pretty significant as a moment. Another big moment for me that happened around that same time was I'd been in quite a long relationship through university and into the early chapters of my career. I made the choice to end that relationship. And that relationship for me was like it was a steadying relationship in my life. It was a friendship, a partnership that was very like grounding for me as well. And ending it was a decision that I made that really came from a place of just sensing this isn't right. Like this isn't the right relationship for me. This isn't the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And it was really hard to take that step. We had the type of relationship that friends looked at and thought like, oh, wow, you have a really good, beautiful relationship, you and this person that I was with for all those years. He was a good person. So that was a really, I think, monumental thing as well, where I took what everyone would call like a big risk by ending a stable, happy relationship in pursuit of something that felt more true for me. That was another piece that really, it shook me to my core. It shook everything, taking that step. I don't know, all sorts of things came out of that, like different steps that I took really out of fear after that relationship ended, trying to really grasp for the next relationship and that not going well. There was just a 2 or 3 year period there that was really tender and really felt very chaotic. I switched jobs as well in that time frame. And then somewhere in there, it's interesting, but around I have to get the year right. I'm going to say it was about 2014 is when I met my now husband. And when I met him, I was at a point in my relationship journey where I had just said, I'm done. I'm not chasing. I'm done efforting.
Isn't that the way?
And I was also in a place where I came to accept I might be single for the rest of my life, and I'm accepting of that reality. I wasn't old by any means, but I was in a place where I was I'm totally okay with this possibility of being single forever. And then I came up here to the Ottawa Valley where I now live with my wonderful husband. And I went to this barbecue with some friends from high school, and my sisters came along with me, and we were no makeup in our cottage gear. And then I met the man who is now my husband at this cottage party. And when I met him, I was just something about this person is so interesting and intriguing to me. And we were both living in Ottawa at the time, went on a date in Ottawa and just had the most coolest relationship journey. And it's interesting how that has shaped other parts of my journey as well in interesting ways, because Tyler is very different than me, but also we share a lot in common in terms of the deeper qualities of who we are and what we value. And yet on the surface look very different. We have very different careers, very different hobbies, very different things that we like to do on the surface level. But Yeah, something about it just works. But yes, it was kind of interesting that it was like this big piece of my life.
I'm really curious about this piece that you're describing of you got to this point finally where you were like totally, utterly surrendered, totally and utterly detached, totally and utterly let it go. And I think there's something important in that energy that you're describing. Can we unpack that a little bit?
Yes, totally. And I've had this same recognition in business.
Yeah, I hear you.
That I actually keep a picture of Tyler just above my computer because it's a reminder of like the energy that I was in when I met him and the energy that I had to let go of to get to that point. Like the chasing and the like, I want this so bad was not it. Like it did not work. It's such a powerful reminder, and it's really interesting to notice myself now in business when I get in that place of like, I need this to work, how that never serves me.
It almost repels it away too.
Yes, totally, totally. So the more like non-attached I can be to outcomes, often the better things go for me in life. And that's been like such a revelation and such a like ongoing thing I need to remind myself too.
Yeah, it's interesting because everything you're saying, I'm like, yes. I mean, we even talk about this in the Mind Rebel Academy, like, like non-attachment and letting go. And yet your words today even served as a reminder for me of like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. The more we grip, the more we chase, the more we need this particular thing to work, whether it's a relationship or a business venture or an idea or whatever it might be, the more we're like constricting the energy towards it. This journey that you're taking us down and the shift that you're describing, that your current relationship right now, it's such a massive part in shaping who you are today and shaping your journey. You talked about how you described yourself in the past in, your consulting job and the way that you defined yourself and success. Tell me a little bit about that progression and what was the turning point there in terms of your career?
Yeah, and this one I would say has been a lot of small steps and recalibrations and deep inquiry around who I'm becoming and what my gifts are and how I want to serve the world. And one of the blessings that I have is I have known how to excel at many things. And because of that, I've had to get really, really curious about what do I actually love. So for me, I started making some shifts in my career. And at the beginning, I was really looking at, okay, how do I want to impact the world? Like, where do I want to create impact? And working in consulting for me was always, I ended up working in consulting. There was always a part of me that wanted impact and significance in my work. And that felt really important. And I was pursuing that through consulting for a time. And then I had opportunities and interests to work in healthcare, which always to me as well felt like an area I wanted to create impact. I actually, for a time in university, considered becoming a doctor and made the choice to go into business school instead, which was kind of an interesting pivot. I started my undergrad in biochemistry.
Wow.
So taking us back, well, I completed an undergrad in biochemistry, did neuroscience research for a while, then did my MBA, and then ended up in consulting and always sort of wanted to come back to this original space of wanting to help through the healthcare system. So I ended up making a move into a different consulting firm to focus on healthcare consulting, did some work in healthcare consulting there, and then ended up working full-time within a healthcare organization in a leadership role. I think what was interesting is the through line through it all was just wanting to create impact in some way, wanting to have significance, and not really at that point looking deeply at the inner development work. I think my relationship storyline brought me into looking at the inner development work somewhat out of necessity. But career-wise, I was sort of making the moves at the outer level, trying to line things up to feel better on the inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Then as I started working in healthcare leadership, I was seeing some of the ways things moved a little slower in that environment than they did when I was working in consulting. So my hours were less. I wasn't traveling as much, and I didn't have some of the same demands in terms of like people leadership that I had when I was working in consulting firms. So anyway, all this to say, I started to notice the restlessness a lot more when I was working in consulting.
Because you were less busy?
Yeah, less busy. And I was also in a role that was very like forward-looking, strategic thinking, not a lot of urgent demands and deliverables coming my way. So I had to have some level of spaciousness in my job design at that point. And it just led me to have a lot more space to be thinking. And at the same time, I was with my new partner, my husband, Tyler. He's a diesel mechanic. So his work is very much like he goes to work, he comes home, right, not thinking or talking about work a whole lot. He's able to disconnect. So he was also this like grounding force in my life. And that's when I sort of started to come into this like curiosity around mindfulness and being in the moment and all that stuff, was when these factors collided together. But what's interesting is when I went into healthcare, as I said, I didn't have as many people leadership responsibilities. I wasn't doing as much mentoring and coaching as I was back in consulting. And I missed that so much. I missed like developing people. And it made it really clear to me that that was something I really loved and enjoyed. And I would continue to have like phone conversations and go for coffees with younger people who wanted to get into consulting or wanted to get into roles that were similar to roles that I had been in. So I started to feel this like longing to do more mentorship and coaching work. And that's what kind of brought me into the curiosity about the career of coaching, because I'd been doing some of my own like inner development work and also a lot of questioning career paths and mentoring others and that type of thing. So yeah, that was kind of some of the parallel streams that were flowing along together at that time.
You said something earlier about in your career, in your work, you were making outer changes without doing the inner. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about that a little bit? Yes. I think that's very, very relatable.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what that felt like for you, what that looked like?
It felt to me when I was doing that, looking for making the outer changes, it felt like I was trying to escape something. Like it always felt like there's something about this isn't right. I need to get out of this and get into something different, something that's better. It was like, it wasn't doing much to question about like, what about this isn't right? But more just like something isn't right. There must be something better. So then I'd look for the something better. And then I'd land in the something better and I'd be like, no, something about this isn't quite right. It's kind of like the Goldilocks trying to fit into this outer circumstance. It wasn't a ton of career hopping, but it was every 2-3 years I would land in a different job. And then, after 2-3 years, I'd be like, I'm kind of bored of this. Something else that was happening though, that was really interesting is I'd get kind of like the taps on the shoulder from people that would be like, hey, there's this opportunity here that you might want. Like, have you considered ever becoming, a partner at this firm? Or have you considered ever becoming the CEO of this? And I was like, I don't think I really want those things. It was interesting to see that when I did have potential opportunities like planted in my mind by people who saw some potential in me, I'd be like, I don't actually know if that's what I want. I think having that again, which is such a blessing to have opportunities and also to be able to pause and reflect and be like, but do I actually want the thing that I'm supposed to want in this place? Made me feel quite like, what do I want? Right? If I don't want this, if I don't want the thing that I'm supposed to want, then what do I want?
So when you started to ask yourself that question, what did you learn about what you wanted?
What I learned was that what I wanted was different than what a lot of people want. And what I wanted was sort of countercultural to what people tell you should want, I guess, in some ways. And when I got really honest with myself, it was like, I don't want to be successful, like quote unquote successful in the traditional ways that I thought one should become successful. I realized I wanted to create and I wanted to build something. And then I also realized that what I want is highly variable and that there isn't just one thing that is like the truth of what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I want freedom to express myself. I want to work with people who I adore and who I help them grow and they help me grow in the same way. I think what I really realized what I wanted is like much more freedom than what any career path I'd ever seen anyone else follow could offer me. And it made me realize what I want is to just keep exploring what I want and to be able to play with that a bit and to be able to express myself through my work in a way that feels very creative and fluid and evolves with me as I evolve. It took a while for me to be able to articulate that in the way I just have, but I think that's really what I discovered. And also that as I started to ask myself that question of what do I really want, I view this as like such a privilege that I was able to do this, but I was able to speak to when I was working in traditional like settings, organizational settings, being someone who could express exactly what I wanted in that moment was quite unique. And for the most part, the people I worked with were like, we can make that work.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you want to coach a couple days a week and work here 3 days a week while you build your coaching practice? We can make that work. Like, we know that you're worth it type of thing. It was really cool to see that even some of the organizational structures could adapt in some ways in the right, again, I view this as a privileged position I was in where I was able to have those conversations, but also I think they happen less often than they could happen. It's kind of neat to be able to kind of shoot your shot and be like, this is what I want.
It's amazing.
It's different.
Right. First, to ask yourself the question. What you just demonstrated and described to us is that question can be really challenging and disorienting because, like you said, it's not this life that I have poured all of my life force energy into creating. If it's not this, then what? It's such a disorienting and really scary question. No wonder your instinct was to keep yourself busy in moments of quiet and calm before, because to even ponder that question is scary, right? Mm-hmm. So everything you're describing, I'm like, yes, I feel it as you're describing it to me. Do you ever just sit back and really take in where you are today? Everything you're describing, I'm like, you've created. And I know there are still challenges and there's still growth and there's still evolution. But everything that you just named you wanted, you've created for yourself.
Yes. And this is the interesting piece of it, is even hearing that I've created for myself. It's like what I feel like I've done is I've learned to clear the crap that gets in the way of me being who I am and being true to what I want in the moment. And life, I don't know, like just the people and the circumstances that have like gathered around this, what I'll call like truth, is so much more powerful than just me forcing it into existence. I can't claim to have a really, I have my strategy for my business. I'm intentional in the things I do and how I spend my time, but it feels very beyond me how people come into my world, how some of the things that have come together in the last few years have come together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to get out of my own way, basically. Let things happen and follow what feels true and real for me in a moment. I think the thing that's most interesting for me is how we as humans want to know everything and how inherently mysterious and inexplicable life is. It's like we want everything to be certain and to be able to like plan our steps. And yet, I don't know, as much as I've tried to plan steps, there are just so many things that have happened that I've been like, how? Why? I don't know. But how cool is it that by doing that work of consistently sort of turning towards what feels real and true and right in this moment, life has kind of organized itself around that in an interesting way at the outer level.
You talked about how even things like in your old role, claiming what you want and who you are and how you want to serve, and your role responding to you like, okay, we'll give you some of that. Everyone's situation is going to look different, but there really is some kind of organizing magic that happens in life when someone stands in the truth of who they are and turns inward to ask themselves the questions of what do I want? Who am I? How do I want to serve in this world? And stays true to that course. And in all the mystery of it and all the uncertainty of it and all the almost sheer terror of what that can feel like to be truly yourself in this world. And the way life can reorganize and shape around you, it feels magical. It really, there's like no other word for it, but it feels like a magical process. I love what you're saying about, well, I didn't create this on my own. You claimed these truths for yourself, but something larger is at play here when we are true to ourselves. And I could not agree with you more.
And I think what's so powerful about when I look at the work that I do now with leaders is how much bigger than me it does feel, which is, I think, how we want it to feel when we're building something that's meaningful and lasting is, the people who come into my spaces and into my work, they're connecting with something that isn't just me. It's not like Rebecca, the identity. It's what I'm speaking is resonating with them. And what I'm speaking is what I've come to see as the truth of my experience, and something about that lands with them. And then, I don't know, it's like you connect on this really cool, deep level. And I know you can so relate to this, Taryn, because I feel the same with what you've created in the MRA. It's so neat to see that rippling out and to feel like really it's not, the referrals that I get. I don't feel like they're referrals to me. I feel like they're referrals to this shift in perspective, the meaning of the work. And it's also beautiful that I get to see, like, I'm not alone either. Like, I'm a solopreneur in title, but there's so many organizations that I partner with or individuals I partner with who really share an aligned sort of perspective and aligned mission, I'll say, of awakening consciousness in leadership is ultimately what I'm about. But it's pretty cool. It's like I'm just like surfing kind of, and sometimes I get eaten by a wave, right? Like I'm not always just happily surfing, but there's like an ocean that is bigger than me that is like carrying momentum for the work that I do.
This is the work of your soul. This is your life's work. This is just so much bigger than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also I hold that in perspective. And then I also hold this perspective of like, but Rebecca, the human, as like, I'm very proud of Rebecca, the human with fears and insecurities, for like taking the steps that have felt so scary to get to this point too.
Let's talk about that.
That's been intense.
That is incredibly intense. Yeah. The human who says yes to the work of their life, the work of their soul, the human with fears, with limiting beliefs, with physical, like energetic limitations, with, the human.
Yeah, the human. I think one thing that's made my journey a bit unique to this point is I've developed a really unique perspective around risk that I think anyone who's sort of considered themselves to be like truly heart-led, soul-led might resonate with. But I think I've gotten to a point where, for me, the greatest risk is not like losing everything. It's not looking like an idiot. Like, those things are risks. They scare me. But the greater risk is to live out of alignment, to live a life that feels untrue. And I think that's something that I feel so deeply within myself. I don't know how long I can say I've like really known that and been able to claim it, but it's, I think, something that's unique in how I operate and how I feel. Is like, I would give up almost anything in this material realm to ensure I'm living a life that feels true to who I am and that offers me that freedom to express who I am and my gifts. And coming to that realization is like, that's a powerful force to recognize. And then I think in the last few years, I've gotten to walk that talk and like let go of so much in service of building what I can see as what feels true, what feels aligned. And it's not been easy by any means. Like, I've really, had to go through an immense amount of discomfort, and luckily had so many tools and practices I could lean on to like be in the depths of that discomfort and support myself through it and keep my nervous system in a state that isn't, completely overwhelmed as I like gradually let go of these things that I've traditionally formed my sense of safety and identity around. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see who you become on the other side of that, and to be like, wow, I can let go of the title. I can let go of the house. I can let go of like pretty much any material possession and be okay.
Wow.
And like what becomes possible when you recognize that.
The word just like liberation is coming to me when you describe that. I can feel it in my heart as you speak to that. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's coming to me is, I'm not sure I've ever heard so beautifully expressed what true self-love actually looks like in practice. Mm. You've decided that being true to who you are and your alignment is more important than absolutely anything else. Like, is there a more powerful declaration of self-love than that? Like, truly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't have put it that way myself, but it really lands with me that it is a powerful expression of self-love. And speaking of legacy, we haven't talked about like motherhood at all, but I feel like that has been a massive amplifier of all of this. Becoming a mother and being like, this is the legacy I want to leave for my daughter too, is to show her that you can live a life that is true and beautiful and like different, and maybe that other people might look at and go like, oh wow, that looks awful. And it's possible to create something beautiful and unique, and to live in a way that feels that liberating. It's showing possibility for her, but it's also showing possibility to anyone who is looking for that.
to be your daughter and to have you as her example, her role model, her model of what is possible in the world is just bringing tears to my eyes.
Oh, thank you. I'm by no means a perfect mother, but that's it's one thing that I hope to pass on. I think of her often as I do my work, and anytime I record like a lesson or a teaching, a practice, something, being like, oh, how cool that, if I did, coming back to that early question of like, if I die tomorrow, what will people remember of me? Like, I feel like I'm at a point where I'm starting to build a storyline and a body of work as well. It's like, if I died tomorrow, I would actually feel like I have something pretty cool that I could share with my daughter. And she could look at years from now and say, oh, okay, this is my mom's perspective. This is who my mom was. Yeah, that's something I think about that I'm kind of, I guess, proud of, is being true enough to myself that someone could see who I truly am.
Wow.
Yeah.
For people who are listening, who aren't familiar with your work, can you share a little bit about what you do, what you've built, how you work with leaders?
Yes.
What a big question, eh? It's so hard to...
it is. And I've fallen victim to trying to make my work, having that like one-liner that captures everything I do. Yeah. But ultimately, the work that I do is I help people with busy minds and, the shared intent that I mentioned earlier to like have an impact in the world, do good. That's always been something that's core to who I am, is wanting to use whatever gifts I have for good. And I help leaders who are similarly minded, people who want to do good in the world, who deeply value that, and who also have busy minds, can be all consumed by the work that they do, and can have that longing for inner freedom, and help them through retreats, through private coaching, and through a community peer program that I run called the Conscious Leadership Collective. Help them get so crystal clear on their vision, their zone of genius, their areas of focus, and to support them as they go through the human work of working through the fears as they bring that big, beautiful vision to life. I use mindfulness meditation as one of the core pillars of my work, and help people, again, with like quieting the chatter of the mind, to hear more clearly those whispers from within that can help them get clear on where they want to go, what their best next steps are, and then to work through the challenges, the ups and downs that come as they move toward that. So ultimately they can lead with more clarity, more intentionality, more inner freedom. And a lot of what my clients will share that I offer to them is helping them shake up their perspective of what's possible for their lives and for their work, and that they can create enormous impact without compromising their time with their loved ones, without compromising their peace. And you can kind of have both. You can have this meaningful, beautiful, impactful career and a harmonious lifestyle and spaciousness, and, go for walks in the woods with your dog and do all these things. You don't have to choose between an impactful career and a spacious, beautiful life.
Rebecca will share all of the links to your website and how people can get in touch with you in the show notes of this episode. As we wrap this conversation up, as we close this, I'm curious if you have any words of wisdom to share with someone who can so relate to what you were describing earlier in previous chapters of your life, where this sense of being in the still moments, uneasiness rising, unsettledness rising, and the instinctive reaction, just keep yourself busy or keep yourself moving forward or keep yourself, going on that next goal. If someone's listening to this and can just so relate to everything you said there, Because that can feel like a very hard stage to break. Do you have any words of wisdom for that person that you want to share and leave behind?
Yes. The first would be, it's worth it to build your capacity to sit with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, and to like learn to tune into your inner world and what's there, and to learn to find, it might feel like it's a ways away, but to learn to find delight in your own company is a true gift. And it's not something that you have to white knuckle or do overnight. It's something that you can, as I said, build capacity. There's simple ways you can start to do that. And this is what I often work with my clients. And one of the first things that many of them find helpful is what I refer to as just quieting the noise. And this can be done by, practicing going for a walk without your headphones in and letting your mind kind of run. Or, if you have a dog, going for a walk with your dog and committing to using that time to just like kind of be in the moment and build that capacity gradually to quiet the things that typically would pull your mind away from yourself, and to learn to work with the mental chatter that comes. And there are ways to do this, but this is where mindfulness comes in so deeply into my work. Is usually it's kind of where we start. It's helping people build that capacity to bring awareness into your body so it's not caught in the rumination and the chatter and the fear, and to just really be with like what's here in the moment. So yeah, practicing that art of gradually building your capacity to slow down, to be with yourself. It doesn't have to look like sitting and meditating for 30 minutes right off the bat or something. It can look like just going for a walk without your headphones in, making space to be when you're able, and to know that you don't have to answer all the questions right away. Sometimes even just knowing that those questions exist is helpful.
Yeah.
To
the questions that
them.
come up, you don't need answers for them quite yet. Yeah.
No.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. It's about learning to just hold space for those questions and to not have to run away from them. Yeah. And there's so much freedom that comes with like knowing that we can hold these big questions without needing to turn our whole lives upside down to solve them in the moment.
Right.
But I would say the biggest thing is like trust that it's worth it. Trust that it's a beautiful gift to learn to find some comfort and delight in your own company.
Rebecca, I want to thank you so much for this time we had together today, and for sharing your story so openly and so tenderly as well. And I'm just in awe of you and the work that you're doing in the world and the vision. I remember the vision you created for yourself when we did part 1 of the Mind Rebel Coach training, and seeing what you're doing with your life now, and how all sorts of, not just work, but you've got things coming into your fruition from your vision in your personal life, with the home you're building and the land that you're building it on. And I am just in awe of everything you're doing. I'm one of your biggest fans and cannot recommend you enough. And just grateful that we got to spend this time together today.
Thank you so much, Tara. And yeah, this is such a gift. And yes, it was tender. It's tender to look back on the journey, especially, I know, just at this point as we're about to move into our new home and really step into what's been building for years. So yeah, it's a gift. Thank you for this time and for your beautiful questions and for the space.
It's my honor. Thank you for listening to Legacy Lived on the Mind Rebel podcast. If this episode invited reflection on the legacy you're living, you can explore our work at www.themindrebel.com.